Can you pass these out?
So I'll just
The
Contrarian investing.
might thanks share, guys.
No worries.
You go sharing? Thanks.
Okay, don't look at them yet. Don't rush ahead. Okay. Before I start, I want to ask all of you, do you want to be smarter about your money?
Yes.
Thank you. And the answer is no. You can take out your phones, you can start playing with it, look for this awesome app, ignore everything I have to say. But if you do, then please listen carefully, because what I'm going to talk about for the next few minutes might just change your life. At the very least, you will be, as the cool kids say these days, I'm looking at you young generation, you'll stay woke. I think that's what they say. Anyway, you may be wondering what qualifies me to talk about contrarian investing. When I was 22, I moved to the US. I had three things. I had an MBA in finance, I had the immigrant mentality, and I had the energy of youth. And I worked for a trading company, and very quickly I saw how much money people were making around me, so I left them and I started out my own trading company. So I was the guy in the pits, you know, like in trading places, shouting, screaming. No one really knows quite what you're doing, but somehow everyone's making a lot of money. So, I didn't win a Nobel Prize in physics. There was a guy, Burton Malkiel, he's a Russian economist. He won the Nobel Prize for claiming that there's no money to be made in trading, because the markets are efficient. He wrote a book called The Efficient Market Hypothesis, saying you can't make money in trading, markets are efficient. But somehow, through the inefficiencies of the market, I was a millionaire several times over before I was 30. So that was kind of my first glimpse into the difference between theory and practice. And it's a good reminder that Nobel Prize winners, while they might be incredible in their field or incredible in other ways, aren't always right. So, by 35, fast forward a few years, through reckless living, bad timing, being over-leveraged in stocks, investing in some wonderful startups that Google never actually bought and they went to zero, I was nearly broke again. Big, big swing. And when you've been rich, you realize that money doesn't buy you happiness. But what it does buy you is the freedom to live the life that you want to live. And it teaches you the peace in not having to answer to anybody, and that leads to a lot of happiness, in my humble opinion. But now it's given me a new passion, and I think it's for me to help other people in my position not make the same mistakes that I made. So the things that I'm going to be talking about the next few minutes, I wish that I could have told my 25-year-old self that. It would have saved me a lot of pain and aggravation over the last decade of my life. So if I'm going to talk about contrarian investing, I better talk about what's normal investing, what is non-contrarian investing. And I think what I learned in business school, and I think what they teach, is that it's a very simple combination between stocks, bonds, and a little bit of cash for safety. And that ratio changes. As you get older, you're supposed to reduce the amount you have in stocks because they're more volatile, increase the amount you have in bonds, and then you retire and you live happily ever after. So, why do I think that's a myth? Why am I talking about contrarian investing? Why am I a contrarian when it comes to finance? Well, firstly, market timing is huge. More than 70% of stocks move with the overall market, independent of how wonderful the company is. So if you buy stocks after a multi-year run, then your risk is huge and your reward is minimal. So that's when I want you to turn to Exhibit 1. That was actually a few thousand points less in the S&P, but it just shows the last 25 years, the S&P has had two significant pullbacks, and judging from that, it looks like the third is imminent. March 2009, the S&P closed at 676. Last week, it closed over 2,900. I didn't even check it this week because I'm so disgusted with the money I lost all those years ago. I try and avoid looking at where stocks are. I just looked for this speech. But that's over 400% in a decade. And I don't think that's a sustainable run. It's too much too soon. Supposedly, our wonderful friend Einstein, those members know that Ken's given many speeches on Einstein. Einstein called compound interest the eighth wonder of the world. Now, unfortunately, the great Einstein couldn't get his head around the expansion of the universe, and towards the end of his life, he was very depressed. He called it his biggest blunder when he realized that the universe was actually expanding. So unfortunately, that goes to show, again, another great man, much greater than me, but he was he wasn't perfect, and he also sadly didn't understand economics, because compound interest is not the eighth wonder of the world. The true matter is that compound interest only works well when you have quite a large principal to work with to start. On top of that, the market can't be predicted, but the financial gurus would have you believe that you can beat it. These gurus make money from the books that they sell, from the courses they promote, the seminars, the retreats. They're not making their fortune often, and mostly actually, they're not making it from the stock market. They won't tell you about inflation rates, the threat of financial recessions. No way, everything's positive with them. That'll scare you away. Instead, they tell you the same story of how if you bought the stock Coca-Cola back in the early 1900s, you'll now be able to enjoy your millions at age 120. So that's the problem with compound interest. You have to let it work for so many years. I don't want to be rich at 120. I want to be rich in the next few years. So that's traditional investing. Now we're going to talk about contrarian investing. We're going to talk about what I didn't learn when I went to business school, what I didn't learn when I read, the 100 top business books of business and finance. It all says the same thing. Real estate. 9 out of 10 millionaires in the US hold substantial portions of real estate. It's outperformed the US stock market slightly in the last century, but it's had a quarter of the volatility. So why don't business programs, why don't MBAs talk about real estate? Well, it's because every project is different. While stocks and bond markets are more liquid, you can be anywhere in the world, you can open up an E-Trade account and you can buy Apple stock. It's very easy. It's uniform. The daily fluctuations of the stock market make great TV. Just turn on CNBC during the trading day and you'll either have a lot of excitement or a headache, depending on your personality. But it's a lot going on. It's always changing, numbers flashing. It appeals to our humans' love for novelty. That's what stocks are. Real estate is much less volatility. It's much less excitement. But money for me is not about entertainment. I want to be rich. I want to live the life I want to live. I don't care about being entertained with my money. America's first millionaire was John Astor. He was a German immigrant, and he traded fur. And he took his fur trading profits, and he put it in Manhattan real estate. He became America's first millionaire. Later on, as inflation brought up the New York real estate market, he became America's first multimillionaire. Bonus fact of the day, in case you're ever in a random quiz show, the most wealthy person to die on the Titanic was his grandson, who was actually a multi-billionaire from the family money. Arnold Schwarzenegger became a millionaire from investing in Santa Monica real estate way before he made his first million in movies. So why is real estate such a great investment generally? So we have the macro, which is the overall advantages. Then we have the micro, which is this market in Chicago, which I'm going to talk about later. But the macro is the general advantage of real estate. The first one is you're buying with leverage. So if you buy Apple at $100 and it goes up 10%, you're going to make 10%. If you buy a property at $100,000 with 25% down and it goes up 10%, you're actually going to make 40% because of that bank leverage, because of your down payment. More importantly, if you have a building with tenants, they're paying down your loan with the rent. So after 30 years, your mortgage is paid off and you own the building outright. But the real great thing about real estate is it's a tax shelter. It's the wealthy hide their income from the government, because if you have a building that's making money, your accountant's going to depreciate that income against the building. And then when you come to sell the building, you can roll it into a 1031 exchange. So I'm not a tax accountant, I'm not going to tell you how they do it. Just know that they do it. So you don't pay any tax on the money you make from real estate. The right building will give you cash flow, which means you can wait out any economic downturns. As good real estate investments, they pay you to wait. It's not like a stock where if it goes up, great, if it goes down, you're screwed. It pays you to wait out those economic cycles. So what is the perfect real estate investment now and why? That's probably what you're asking. I don't care about the general. I want to know what I'm going to do with my money. That's the micro. Talking about real estate is way too general. If we lived in London, Sydney, New York, would I be telling you should buy real estate? No, because those markets are just too high. So please look at Exhibit 2. That just compares the overall, some major metropolitan cities from a UBS study, and it shows that globally, out of all these major cities, Chicago is the only undervalued city in the whole of the study. There's a reason Chicago has 53 cranes going on right now building high-rises, the most out of any US city. It's because it's very cheap. The great Andrew Carnegie said, the way to become rich is to put all your eggs in one basket and then watch that basket. So what is that basket? Well, that basket is the right building, ideally a 3 to 4 unit, in the right area, ideally Pilsen or Avondale or Hermosa or East Humboldt Park, these great little pockets of the right city, which is Chicago, which is undervalued. So today, there's no phrase that stays. I'm not leaving you with a 10-word mantra that you remember. I'm leaving you with Exhibit 3. Please turn to Exhibit 3. Exhibit 3 shows you the perfect building. It's a picture, but it's also, if you turn the next page, it's just an example of kind of the cash flow and the reason that building makes money. My client just bought this building, and it gives you all the advantages of all the things I've been talking about generally. So if you can remember one thing about being a contrarian investor, it's open your eyes to other knowledge. Don't just follow the herd. Stocks, bonds, cash. Thank you.